Hello everyone and welcome to the WCS GP round from Suzuka. We are today in a brief 15-minute qualifying session which will decide the grid for this very, very wet Suzuka round from the WCS GP. Currently we have 13 drivers in the session. Hopefully we will get more, but interestingly if we don't get more, that means that this is a very good opportunity for drivers to score more points than they normally would do, and for drivers who normally wouldn't score points to score points. So it'll certainly be an interesting one, and possibly a quite considerable one in terms of the actual championship as well. Of course, at the head of the championship at the moment, we have Danny van der Neert on 67 points, effectively 79 without drop scores. But behind him, you have Stefan Rowe and Jonathan Holmes with 66 and 65 points. So just 2 points separate the top three drivers there. But on overall points, without the two dropped rounds, we are actually still, we do have the top three in the championship the wrong way round. So Jonathan Holmes on overall points should be leading the championship, but he's third. Rowe should be second and is second, but van der Neert is leading it and should technically be in third position. But of course, as a reminder, the drop scores are the two scores taken off the drivers' championship. So, of course, this season there are going to be 13 rounds minus 1 or minus 2 rounds now, or no, 13 rounds minus 1 now, because of course our last round at Laguna Seca was cancelled due to a glitch. So there's going to be 12 rounds effectively, and the results from your best 22 races there, so 22 out of 24 are going to be counted. That means that towards the end of the year, there's a very high chance that none of these drivers at all will have any score other than the score that they were going to end up with anyway. But these drop scores, of course, are for the purpose of just trying to even out the championship in case a driver near the front of the field has to miss a round or something of that kind. But anyway, a reminder of the championship standings. Behind Van der Neert, Rowe and Holmes are Niels Brugman, Sven de Vries, Laurent Kiersmakers, Wopke Hoekstra, who has of course retired from the series now, Antonio Jelenovic, Wesley Stefano, who I think has also retired from the series, and Roy Vizil. So, those are the top 10 drivers in this championship, but as I said, not many of them have turned up so far today. We only have 13 drivers in the session, and hopefully we get more before the race, but I don't know if we will, and if we do, it won't be many more. I'm not sure why there are so few people here, but anyway, we are now watching Laurent Kiersmakers as he's coming through the final sector of the course, and oh dear, and I needed to turn my volume down because I couldn't hear myself think. Right, there we go. At least now you've got a tiny bit of it. Okay, so Laurent Kiersmakers has just put in the first lap of the session and has immediately been beaten by Jonathan Holmes and Stefan Rowe as Holmes runs off, so that lap won't be a better one from Holmes there. Van der Neert's gone to 4th, our championship leader, and then Nash and Janet have followed him across the line. Stefan Rowe, did he just cross the line? No, it was Roelink Hoekstra who goes to 5th. Let's watch Gerrit de Vries on his first attempt. He is just coming around he's just coming around the final sector, of course, now locks up, runs over onto the white line on the exit of the first corner of the chicane. You can't do that too many times, or on your lap rather, that'll certainly affect it. Where does he put it? He puts it 5th, so demotes Roelink Hoekstra to 6th. Jacob Pegg is on a lap now. He is in the second sector of the course, now going underneath the bridge. You'll see him going over that in a short while and up into a left-hander chicane, very, very tight, 180 degrees. There you see it. The track sort of dips away and uphill in the middle of the corner there, so it's an interesting one. But Jacob Pegg seems to be on a relatively good lap actually, and the rain I think is easing slightly. I mean, it looked sort of like that because we were going relatively quickly, and you can't really see the rain so much on a straight, but that certainly did look like it was easing slightly there. Now down the back straight, he's now going over the bridge that you saw him going under a few minutes ago. Now, there's the bridge. You can even see a gamer tag going under it. Ferocious 130R. Whoa, gets over the curb. Good save from Jacob Pegg there. I really thought he was going round. Really dipped 2 wheels over the curb there, and I saw that a couple of times in practice. You just can't afford to do that too many times. Has a twitch coming out of the chicane and round the final corner. Now, what's this lap going to be from Jacob Pegg? I don't think... No, I think he hasn't put in the lap yet. No, he's actually just started the lap, so we can watch this for the whole lap, in fact. And actually, Stefan Roll's lap is almost a second quicker than anyone else's so far. It's about 0.962 ahead of Jonathan Holmes. So, Roll definitely doing very well in the wet conditions here. But if the track dries out further in this session, as it appears to be sort of drying out now, even though the rain is coming down, then drivers could still go quicker. Although, of course, it is an advantage for these drivers to put in the first lap, because then if it does get wetter, if the rain keeps coming down, you've effectively got a guaranteed pole position. So, Ruhl now will be hoping for more rain, because if it keeps getting wetter and wetter, Ruhl will have pole quite considerably here. But anyway, we're still watching Jacob Pegg as he went through the hairpin again. I was quite interested by how he looked like he was pushing on his outlap there. It looked like he was at full qualifying speed. But anyway, possibly just trying to get the tyres up to temperature. Jacob Pegg now through the spoon curve, double left-hander. Difficult acceleration zone as you're still turning and accelerating at the same time there. And then we're going to head down the back straight and over the bridge again. And again, Ryan Nash goes underneath us through, 130 out, gets it a lot cleaner this time round, doesn't go over the curb too much. Now into the chicane, you see Fabian Ruder just up the road there in the Mayor Downard racing car. And now out through the final corner goes Jacob Pegg. What's this lap going to be? It's 5th. So Jacob Pegg goes 5th and Demoets Eric de Vries. And only one of our drivers has not set a lap yet, and that's Matthew Williams. As Ruhl has now put his car back into the pits, he believes he's done enough, I think. Anyway, Matthew Williams in the second sector of the... Oh no, well, yep, oh goodness, gets over the curb there. He's in the second sector of the course, about to enter the third sector. Now, how does he do 130R, the trickiest corner on the track? Certainly the most dangerous, if not the trickiest. Oh, over the curb, he's lost it. Oh dear, that's going to lose him some time. Did well to hold it, but that's certainly going to lose him some time. And of course, he went all 4 wheels over the line as well, so he can't go quicker with this lap. But anyway, we'll see what he does. He's going to cross the line now. And has it been set yet? No, it hasn't. He puts it... Oh, he's actually just gone onto a lap, so that doesn't matter too much. Laurent Keersmakers has gone 3rd since last time I looked, so... And Van der Neert's gone 2nd, so it's Ruhl, Van der Neert, Keersmakers, Holmes, Pegg in the top 5 here. And now we're just waiting for Matthew Williams to put in his lap. We've got Ryan Nash just up the road. Oh, Nash went off and then escaped back to the pits there. But anyway, so very, very squirrely first sector here from Matthew Williams. That's going to cost him a lot of time there. Oh dear, he's got it very sideways, doing well to hold it, but this is certainly not going to be a good lap. And, well, he'll have to keep this lap going just to put in a lap to put him ahead of the people right at the back of the order. But, oh dear, gets over the grass this time. This really has been a pretty lackluster lap here so far from Matthew Williams. Of course, Megané Trophy Championship leader. Brilliantly quick in a touring car and also in a GP car usually. But this time, obviously not quite getting used to this track in the rain just yet, and Williams struggling on this lap. Through the spoon curve. 5 minutes remaining in the session now, so we're 10 minutes in. Out of spoon goes Williams. Doesn't spin up the rear tyres, so that's good. Very easy to just spin the car around on the exit of that corner with the wet conditions, I know from experience. Now through 130R, don't get over the curb. Oh, he gets over the curb and goes wide again. Gets over the grass, that's going to cost him time. Now into the chicane. Hits both curbs, interestingly. All 3 curbs, I think. A lot of drivers wouldn't do that in the rain, and that's why he gets right up. You can't keep it on the inside there, because that's where the river runs, basically. And he's crossed the line and put it last, and then abandoned to the pits. I said that wasn't going to be a quicker lap, and indeed it wasn't. What does Van der Neert do this time through? Is it even a quicker? No, it's not a quicker lap from Van der Neert, but let's watch this one just in case he can go quicker. Now, it's still raining though, and I don't know whether the rate of rain is exceeding the rate of evaporation, rather. It looks like it is now. I just saw it getting very, very dark as he went down the start-finish straight there, and I think it is raining quite heavily in the first sector now. So I reckon that our order is confirmed here. I reckon it's going to be Ruel, Van der Neert, Keersmakers, Holmes, Pegg, De Vries, Nash, Onwin, Stanford, Janet, Hoekstra, Ruder, Williams. But I think there's still more to come from Williams, so we'll see. Williams, of course, we're not used to seeing that far down the order. Locks up, does Van der Neert, and that's going wide into the gravel. So this is not going to be a quicker lap from Van der Neert. What about Laurent Keersmakers? He's currently on a lap, I think. It's difficult to tell when a driver's on a lap and when they're not. I think I can get the live timing up for this, can't I? So I'll do that. Still, Matthew Williams, or Laurent Keersmakers rather, lapping this very wet Suzuka circuit up the hill towards Spoon. Now here's the first apex. Does he clip the curb? Yes, he does. Doesn't dare get out to the curb on the outside. He's actually lost a place now. He's down to 3rd. Who's got up? Holmes has gone up into 2nd. So Jonathan Holmes up into 2nd. He is effectively our championship leader in terms of overall points. Now he spins it, but he's already set the lap. Of course, our real championship leader, when you factor in drop scores, is Danny Van der Neert. And then you've got Stefan Ruel between the two. So our top 3 in the championship are our top 3 on track. In fact, Laurent Keersmakers, who's in 4th, I think is also 4th in the championship. No, he isn't. He's actually 6th in the championship behind Brugman and Sven de Vries. Now, are Brugman or Sven de Vries here today? I don't think either of them are. Well, Gerrit de Vries is starting off. I'm looking for Sven de Vries. Nope, neither of them are here today. So, interestingly, I just saw Matthew Williams going out of the... Oh, no, he's still in the pits. In fact, he's not going to get another chance. Look at the times. So Matthew Williams is going to be starting from the back of the grid here, which is interesting. I was not expecting that, but anyway, that appears to be the case. Jacob Pegg just coming around the final sector now. And he's going to cross the line. I don't think this will be quicker from him. It is not. Quicker final sector from Jacob Pegg there, though. So a slight improvement there, but no improvement in terms of lap time. Gets a bit squirrely on the exit there. I have now got the live timing open, so I'll keep an eye on if anyone's going quicker. Pegg pulling off the circuit. Gerrit de Vries has just cut across that chicane there, interestingly. So this cannot be a quicker lap from him and stick. And I'd be very surprised. I'm just going to go do that quickly so I can check something. But it looked to me as if de Vries was trying to gain advantage for his next lap. Oh, he didn't even cut across the chicane. That was me seeing things. So ignore me. I'm being completely daft there. So never mind. Everything is fine. Now, all 3 of the top guys are in the pits. So it really is down to the guys behind to possibly demote them off pole. But I reckon this rain has just been getting heavier and heavier. I don't think we're going to see a quicker lap. So that, I think, might be it for the session. Let's watch Keersmakers crossing the line here. He's not gone any quicker. One driver who did improve on his first sector time was Fabian Ruder here. The only driver to have improved on his sectors in a while. So let's watch Fabian as he's rounding the 2nd and 3rd sectors of the track. He's in 12th position out of 13 at the moment and wants to move himself up ahead of the driver you actually see behind him on the track now. Rian Hoekstra, who is the car ahead in terms of time. So let's see what Fabian can do. He's just coming towards the end of the 2nd sector. And his 2nd sector time is not quicker. So his second sector time is not even his personal best, but he can still do this if he's quick. Hoekstra has just had an off in the background and has abandoned back to the pits. Ruder is going to be the last driver to cross the line here. No other driver has gone quicker on their laps here. And does Ruder improve? Well, he's crossed the line now, and he hasn't gained a position. And in fact, his lap was an improvement. So he got slightly closer to Hoekstra ahead of him, but he's still 9/10 off. So no real improvement from Ruder there. And that is the qualifying session over. So on pole position for this race, we have Stefan Roll, followed by Jonathan Holmes and Danny van der Nit, who are top 3 in the championship, or are the top 3 on the track, but not in the same order. Then it's Laurent Keersmakers, Jacob Pegg, Gerrit de Vries, Ryan Nash, Casper Oinwin, Eric Stanford, Jarek Janet, I should say, Rian Hoekstra, Fabian Ruder, and Matthew Williams. So we're going to have a short break now, and that will have a brief warm-up session in it for the drivers, and we will be right back for the race. Well, apparently the broadcast went down there, and I have no idea why it did, but we're still here, and hopefully we didn't miss too much of that. I'm not sure when the broadcast went down, but it appears to be up and running again now. So I think everything's fine. I've just checked on the stream, and we did indeed see the end of the broadcast. So bit of a weird glitch there, but whatever the case. Hello to Fizz and to Social in the YouTube chat. You're both asking why there are only 13 races, and to be honest, I don't know either. I expect it's probably because this car is extremely hard to control at the best of times. So a lot of people noticed that it was raining and just thought, "What's the bother? I'm going to retire anyway." But whatever the case, we only have 13 drivers here. I'm not saying that is the case because I haven't spoken to all of the drivers who are not here. But this car, I've heard from many people, is a real sort of Marmite car. You love it or you hate it, and many people are really struggling to learn to control it. And in the rain, I can imagine it is a real handful. But as I just get rid of any tape delay we might have had, I'm sure it is still a thrilling car to drive. All single seaters, of course, provide some of the quickest direction changes out of any racing car in the world. CCL types, I know Hurt, I presume that's Stan Hurt, is not racing because of other things, and Mark Fuller is not racing because of the weird Oculus crash that's going on. I'm not sure what the Oculus crash is, but it seems that a couple of guys have given reasons as to why they're not here. But yeah, it is a bit of a shame. We've had over 20 guys at some of the previous rounds of this series, and now to only see 13 is a bit of a shame, but I'm sure we will still get a thrilling race, because we always do. And all Oculus Rifts are not working, apparently. I hadn't heard of that one, but anyway, it doesn't explain why he can't just race on a normal monitor, but you know, that's not for me to say. Still about 6 minutes until the start of the first of the two races. Of course, the first race is going to be a 40-minute race, I think, which is going to, of course, have the grid positions decided by that qualifying session you just saw. And then the second race will have a completely reversed grid, well, a top 10 reversed grid. So the top 10 will be reversed, and that means that we should get a very mixed up order. I'll feel very sorry for the 3 drivers that miss out on that reversed grid there, but anyway, that's how it's going to be. Of course, you raise a good point, Fizz, that every driver in this race is going to get points, so long as they finish. Remember, you do need to finish to be classified, and therefore you need to finish to be scored to score points as well. And that means, of course, that it really is worth finishing this race, and it is worth being very careful with the car, just making sure you don't bin it in the wet conditions. And for the championship, this is a real opportunity for some of these guys near the bottom of the order to jump a couple of places. At the front of the order, it won't matter too much, but it should really muddle up the table further down. Some of these guys are going to jump up 5 or 6 positions if they finish a race, I'm sure. So they need to just make sure they do that. But still, could be a real chance for the guys at the front to show what sort of pace they have without backmarkers getting in the way, without too many backmarkers getting in the way. Fizz types, Brugman loses his 2 jokers here. That's what matters. Well, now the thing with Niels Brugman is that he had already missed 2 rounds. He missed the first round of course, he missed the first round at Dubai. So he of course was always going to have a disadvantage. All it took was one bad race for him, and then he would legitimately lose out on those points. But it appears that Niels Brugman is not here today and might not be here for the rest of the season. In fact, neither Racing Team Schroken car has turned up. So there is a good chance that Niels Brugman will lose several positions in the championship here, as will Sven de Vries, because he is not here. So 4th and 5th in the championship will lose a couple of places, and that would be a good opportunity for this driver we're running on board with and have been for a while, Laurent Keersmakers, because Keersmakers is 6th in the championship, and I expect he will be 4th in the championship by the end of the day. But we'll see. Remember, he still has to finish 2 races here. Or even 1, I suppose. He could actually make up 2 positions in the championship just finishing 1 race here. But, of course, Wopke Hoekstra, also behind him in the championship, is not here today. Antonio Jelenovic, not here today. So that's 7th and 8th, not here. 9th is not here, Wesley Stefano. 10th is not here, Roy Vizil. 11th is not here, Menno Klont. Neither is Patrick Kraus for 12th. Then we have Gerrit de Vries and Jacob Pegg and Matthew Williams, who are here. They're 13th, 14th and 15th in the championship. Bastian Peisler, not here. Dan Hutt, not here. Shimon Frelich, not here. Kai Ingelsiepen, not here. Ryan Nash is here. Mark Fuller, not here. Tristan Potters, not here. Rian Hoekstra is here. Jarek Janet is here. Fabian Ruder is here. And then Roland Tutt isn't. Casper Unwin is. And then from him down, so Joe Watts, Theodoros Ezeroglu and Roy Schroken aren't here. Eric Stanford is. And then Tobias Olsen and Jason Muscat aren't. Of course, many of those drivers weren't going to be here anyway. There are several drivers in that list that just did 1 or 2 races earlier on this season, and were only ever going to do those rounds just to kind of try out the car. But still, a significant proportion of the regular field is not here either. It might just be that they've lost motivation after we lost the race last week, or last time out, of course. It's been 4 weeks since the last WCS GP race. 2 weeks ago we were going to be in Laguna Seca, but due to some sort of glitch, I believe it was a glitch where the gravel would always cause massive damage to every car that touched it. And as a result, no one wanted to race there, and the event was withdrawn. And I'm not sure what that's going to do to the championship and how they're going to stop the site from counting the drop scores from that round. But anyway, that's what's happened. So we've missed a round at Laguna Seca. It's not just that there wasn't a stream from there, it's that it simply did not happen. Of course, after this round in Suzuka, we will be heading to Istanbul in Turkey, followed by Monza, the Nürburgring, Zandvoort, Barcelona, Spa-Francorchamps, Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, and then the Red Bull Ring to round out the championship. So still several good rounds left to come in this series. And hopefully we get more drivers turning up for the remainder of the season. Now, one thing that I've found interesting about the hot lap leaderboard so far is that in the dry, when they were setting laps in practice, Matthew Williams was third. So Matthew Williams third on the leaderboard. And that's fascinating because, of course, in the wet, he's actually starting from right at the back of the grid quite legitimately. Had a terrible lap when he did set it. So that's an interesting thing to see. But whatever the case, Matthew Williams obviously struggling today, and hopefully that doesn't stay like that for the whole thing. One driver who's not even on the practice leaderboard from what I can see is Jonathan Holmes. I'm wondering how much practice he actually did. If he did much, it wouldn't have been online because then I would have seen his laps on the leaderboard. Anyway, the timer has now ticked to a close on this brief warm-up session, and we can now head, when everyone's finished, to the first formation lap and then into the first race. Susial types, the Laguna Seca race will be rescheduled. Again, no confirmation of this. This is just what someone in the YouTube chat has typed. Hopefully with a better version of the track, otherwise with the reserve circuit, which I believe is Oschersleben. So that means that the Laguna Seca race might well still be rescheduled. And hopefully it will be, because otherwise we'll get fewer rounds than we would otherwise do. I would be surprised if it's rescheduled, though, because a lot of these drivers, of course, are criticising the car. And actually, I'm getting them muddled up. Oschersleben is the Megané series reserve track, and it's actually Hockenheim that is the reserve track for the GP car. And a lot of these drivers, as I said, it's a real sort of Marmite car, as I said. You love it or you hate it, and a lot of drivers have been pulling out of this series simply because they hate this car. I'm not trying to put anyone off driving this, because if you love it, you love it. So I'd say certainly pop onto the GP server and give the car a try, just to see how it feels for you. But a lot of these drivers have pulled out of the series. Wopke Hoekstra, for example, pulled out because he didn't like the car, as did a couple of other drivers, and Hoekstra was fighting for the championship at the time, so it was a shame to see him go. But of course, what's the point if you don't like the car? Now, I believe that everyone is in the pits, so we should be heading very shortly to our first formation lap, and then the first race. Yeah, I'm not sure whether Jono, as he's called, Jonathan Holmes, actually practiced much for this, but it's certainly been a good qualifying if he did, because he is starting, of course, in the top three. He's starting second, I believe. So amazing performance if he didn't have any online practice to put the car second. I believe he did quite a bit before qualifying started, but then again, everyone did. So he's had a lot less practice time than everyone else, and yet he still managed to put his car second on the grid. That's very, very impressive there from Jonathan Holmes. Anyway, we are now getting ready for the start of this race. There are a couple of drivers on the grid already. Let's watch our leader, Stefan Roll. Of course, they have to make it out in the next 35 seconds. They just have to apply their setup to the car and then make it out onto the track. If they miss that time, they'll be starting from the pit lane, but I presume that everyone's going to make it. They usually do. 20 seconds left until the cars go away on their formation lap. It's going to be one lap around the track, just to sort of assess the conditions, warm the tyres up, and get everything ready. And then we are going for a race. Now, will Stefan Roll make it out to the pits? This is going to be tight. Come on, Stefan. He's missed it. So Stefan Roll, who was going to be starting from pole position, is going to be starting from the pits. That's terrible news for Stefan Roll. He's going to the end of the pit lane now, and that means that Jonathan Holmes, after no practice at all, is going to be on pole position. Now, that's dreadful for Stefan Roll. Oh, dear. Well, he's really blown that. But are they restarting? I'd be surprised if they did. It looks as if they're going to restart just for one driver, and I've never seen that before. I've seen drivers miss the start before, but I've never seen a race get restarted for it. I reckon that if there were more drivers in the race, they wouldn't have restarted this. But because there's only 13 drivers and there's less chance of it happening again, they've decided to do a restart, so it's not so dreadful for Stefan Ruhl. He's not going to have to start from the pits, and everything is fine. Now, in the interest of realism, if I was the race steward there, I would not have restarted the session. I say that if you don't make it out, you don't make it out. But anyway, I'm not the race steward, so I can't make that decision, and I respect that this is for the interest of keeping it as a close race and keeping the pole sitter on pole position. So that's what has occurred here. Treat that as our first kind of jump start, but the other way round. Wopke Hoekstra types, good luck everyone, might join for race 2. Now that's good to hear, because of course Wopke pulled out of the series earlier, seeing as he didn't like the car from what I heard, but I suppose you can always pop in for race 2, that would be good to see. Yeah, Fizz types, this is a gentleman's league, of course they restart. Well, I've actually seen less professional series than this not restart when a driver has not made it out of the pits. So I was a bit surprised here. I'm pretty sure I've seen people starting from the pits in WCSLeague before. I think that's happened a couple of times, but anyway, whatever's happened, we have gone for a restart, and hopefully this one sticks. Hopefully everyone makes it out in time. Let's watch. Oh look, Antonio Krajinovic has made it in, so he's going to have to start from the back of the grid, but good to see he's made it in nonetheless. He's in a high position in the championship. In fact, I think he's 4th. Is he? Actually, no, he's 8th, so I got that completely wrong. But good to see Antonio Krajinovic in the series today. Of course, finished 2nd last time out, so he's a man on the climb. And it would be good to see how he can do in this race. So, 20 seconds remaining until all drivers have to make it out. Come on, Stefan. You need to get out this time. If you don't make it out, I'm sure they're not going to restart again. There we go. Stefan makes it out. Jonathan Holmes now. Hopefully everyone makes it onto the track. Is everyone out? I believe. Yes, Nope. Antonio. Yes. We're all on track. That was close from Antonio, but he's applied his setup, and now we're all on track. All 14 of us. And away goes Stefan Ruhl for this formation lap. It is still raining really quite heavily. You can't see the cars at the back of the field. And that is going to make this race rather interesting, because it'll really be a case of who has got the most car control in these conditions. There's going to be 23 laps in this race. I think it's 23 laps or 40 minutes, whatever comes first. And I'm pretty sure that 40 minutes would come first in these conditions, certainly. Oh, and Ruhl drives off the road. Now that was weird. It looked almost as if he was typing or something like that. Maybe he was, but anyway. Stefan Ruhl has driven slightly. Oh no! And Krajinovic is back in the pits. Now, oh, well, whether he's done that, I think he might have done that for safety, because of course he's missed qualifying. So if he starts from the pits now to avoid any accidents that might happen at turn 1, then that's better for him, because it means he's guaranteed points. But anyway, he made it out initially, and now he's gone straight back to the pits again. So Antonio Krajinovic will be starting from the pits. And again, a reminder of the order. It's Stefan Ruhl on pole, followed by Jonathan Holmes, Danny van der Neert, Laurent Keersmakers, Jacob Pegg, Gerrit de Vries, Ryan Nash, Casper Onwin, Eric Stanford, Jarek Janate, Rian Hoekstra, Fabian Ruder, Matthew Williams, and then from the pit lane, oh, he's gone, Antonio Krajinovic. Now, whether he's going to be back in to start from the pit lane or not, I'm not sure. Hopefully he is. But Krajinovic, who could well make up several positions in the championship this weekend if he makes it in, has, well, he's not here, so hopefully he's back in before the start of the race. But anyway, we are just coming around the final sector of the course now. We're very nearly ready to get this race underway. Stefan Ruhl is going to line up in his grid position at the front of the field. And he will have a clear view down to turn 1, which is oh so important in these wet conditions where you can't really see the track in front of you if you're running behind someone. And you see the tyre marks there from where people did practice starts as they went off for this formation lap. We're now watching on board with Matthew Williams, who's going to be our last driver to the grid here. I'm just going to see if Antonio typed anything more before he left. He typed "go on," so they didn't restart. In fact, he's actually a spectator now, so Krelenovic is not going to make this round. And into position on the grid now comes Matthew Williams. So let's watch for the lights at the front of the field. When all 5 of these go off, then we will start the race. Go! Away we go! And it's a clean start so far. No one goes spinning off at the start like I thought we might see, as is so easy to do in these conditions. And Royal goes defensive into turn 1, gets the position, gets first place from Holmes. Off in the background goes Pegg and I believe Nash as well. Someone's going very wide and into the gravel. Is that Jacob Pegg? Yes, it is. He touches the wall, but I think we're all through relatively safely. No one's had a proper accident, and Pegg rejoins at the back of the grid there. Everything fine, and it's Royal leading from Holmes, from Van den Aert, Keersmakers, De Vries, Unwin, Matthew Williams, Nash, Janet, Stanford, Ruder, Hoekstra, and Pegg. Williams has made up several positions here so far, and a good start from him as we are entering the second sector of the course now on the first lap of the race. These are the front drivers you see, Royal from Holmes, from Van den Aert. It's the championship battle, and the first time we've seen it in the rain since Interlagos, which actually wasn't that long ago. Of course, the last time we saw these cars in action was at Bahrain a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now. Should have been two weeks ago when we saw the Laguna Seca round, but that was cancelled. And now we are at the Suzuka circuit. Very clean start. Of course, Jacob Pegg slightly touched the barrier, but really got away with it. And everyone's still running on this opening lap of the race, which is great to see. Ooh, oh no, there's a collision further back. Ruder's involved. Unwin is involved. So a couple of guys going off on the first lap of the race. What has happened here? It looks as if Ruder has spun on his own and Unwin is spun in avoidance. Ruder just got over the curb, does spin into Casper Unwin. I'm afraid Ruder just getting over the curb in these wet conditions. You need to know not to do that. You need to be more careful on the opening lap of the race or on any lap of the race. You see there's just no traction out there. And around he goes, Unwin, the innocent party. And here you see it from Casper Unwin. He saw Ruder going around, but there was nothing he could do about it. Went over the grass to avoid it, but I'm afraid he couldn't avoid it completely. And has now dropped near the back of the order. Ruder, the only car behind him. And after the first lap, it's Royal, Holmes, Van den Aert, Keersmakers, De Vries, Williams already up to 6th. Nash, Janet, Stanford, Pegg, Hoekstra, Unwin, and Ruder. So those are the 13 drivers in this race, all of whom will score points if they finish. What was the gap for the lead after the first lap? It was a whole 1.7 seconds. So a great gap built out from Stefan Royal there. And really, really dominant performance on this opening lap. And the closest guys here are Van den Aert and Keersmakers. Are they on the same team? Yeah, they are. Raceview.nl GP. Raceview.nl, of course, the Dutch site where you can see the live timing for this race. Just search up raceview.nl on Google, and then in the search bar, WCS. It's actually listed as WCS GP 3. It hasn't updated from last season, so WCS GP 3. You can see the live timing for this race, and of course the the raceview.nl racing team is currently in a good position with 3rd and 4th positions here. Van den Aert ahead of Keersmakers. Through the final sector of the course for the second time, we're almost 10% of the race in. I don't believe it will be 23 laps at all. It'll be about 20 possibly. Certainly not 23. But anyway, still the gap for 3rd and 4th appears to have come out slightly on that lap. Is everyone through that lap safely? Oh, well, Hoekstra's dropped behind the pack a bit, so Hoekstra might have had an off here. What's happened to Rienk Hoekstra? I'm going to go back in the time to see. Is this what happened? Yeah, he's ahead at this point, and then he... Oh, he just got over the curb. He has a... As you can see, he has a big lockup going down into the second Degner here. Locks up dramatically and then gets on the curb. You can't do that. There's no traction. He spun up the rear wheels and spun the car into the barrier, in fact. There won't be any damage from that, though, I'm sure. And if there is, it certainly won't be very bad damage at all. And he's still running in the race, which is good to see. But that could have been a lot worse from Menno Klont Wopke. It's still less than still less than a 1 second gap, rather, between third and fourth. But Van der Neert getting ahead, or getting away from his teammate Keersmakers a bit on the second lap of the race here. So a good start from Van der Neert. And the championship contenders are getting away a bit here from the drivers behind them. Keersmakers the best of the rest so far with fourth position. Of course, Keersmakers, the ex-GP VWC Super League driver, won several races over 10 years ago now. So Keersmakers, a real veteran of the sport, has been around for so long and has always been quick. And he's still there, and he's still going strongly. So, Laurent Keersmakers still running in fourth position, runs it over the curb on the inside. He's got more courage than I have then to have done that, because I would certainly not have run over the curb like that in these conditions. And Hoekstra is out of the race. Now, that's a shame to see. Was there another incident that happened, or did he simply give up? Oh, there has been another incident, I tell you. He's had another off. This is at Dunlop curve. Oh, that was a weird one. He just seemed to understeer straight off the circuit. Now, that's bizarre. Spins the car around, and everything seems to be fine there. Did he have another incident? Or is that a... Oh, yeah, he did. He went off again. That's another understeer incident. It simply looks like he hasn't steered enough. Now, that's very bizarre. And then he's just given up and gone back to the pits. Now, he probably could have kept that car going, and probably should have done, because he can still score points from here. But Menno Klont Wopke obviously not very happy with something, whatever the case, and is our first retirement from this race, and hopefully our last one. Who's close on track? Peg and Janet. In fact, they've just swapped positions. So Peg and Janet for 9th position have just swapped positions. Janet losing it to Peg, but can he attack back again later on this lap? Can Peg get himself back up with Eric Stanford ahead of him? In fact, there's a brief yellow going down into... Oh, my word. Stanford and Nash side by side, though. I believe they made slight contact. Will Nash come back at Stanford now, down towards Spoon? He's in the slipstream. Not that the slipstream does much when you're getting a face full of water. But these two were certainly very close on track and side by side. Nash dives up the inside, and that was a very late manoeuvre. Touches him. Peg goes off in the background. And this is all getting very close now for 7th, 8th and 9th position. And very, very sideways as well. Now down towards 130R, a long sweeping left-hander. Difficult to get right. And if you run over the curb, you're pretty much doomed in these cars, as we've seen in qualifying a couple of times. Stanford goes wide. Nash takes the attacking line, gets the switch back. And will he go for a move now down the start-finish straight? Stanford's put his car where he needs to defend here. But Nash might well be coming through this time around. Does he go to the inside? Yes, he does. This is for 7th position in the race. Does he outbrake Stanford? He gets it. Runs over the curb slightly and gets it slightly sideways, but he's pulled the move. So Nash up into 7th. Demotes Stanford down to 8th position. How's the gap looking between Van der Neert and Keersmakers? It's come out to almost 2 seconds now, so that's coming apart. And really running away with this, over 4.5 seconds ahead of Jonathan Holmes in 2nd. What about Nash and Stanford, who have just swapped positions? I believe that Nash is going to be getting away from Stanford a bit here. And actually, Stanford is dropping back into the clutches of Jacob Peg behind. So Peg might well go for this place. Of course, Peg lost quite a few places at the start. Fizz, a good question. Or is it Fizz? How do you pronounce your name there? Fizz or Fizz? Anyway, types, do they have to pit once if it rains, since they don't need to change tyre type? I believe there is still a mandatory pit stop, yes. So, despite the fact that they wouldn't have to change tyres, so they probably could do the full race on one set of tyres. I believe that for race 1 there is still a mandatory pit stop. So that's another factor that could still come into play later on in the race, as Jacob Pegg gets a good run out of Spoon there and pulls alongside Eric Stanford. He's got past him immediately. Stanford got a bad run out of that corner. Now, does he come back at him? He's in the slipstream, pulls out to the inside of 130R. That would be extremely brave, and has to back out, understandably. There's no way you're going side by side in these conditions through there. It's very difficult, even when it's dry, but Jacob Pegg makes up the place, slides the rear end out as we head through the final corner, and now he is possibly going to hunt down the car ahead, the equally livery car of Ryan Nash, but he's coming under attack again from Eric Stanford, who has the inside line now for this turn 1, and he gets through. So Stanford gets through into 8th position as we're about a quarter of the race through. And this is a good battle here for 7th, 8th and 9th position. Through the S's we go. It seems like Pegg is quicker through the corners, but Stanford just gets... Well, no, Pegg is better out of the corners, but Stanford just does enough to keep ahead, and then just enough to get back ahead when they get past him. Now, is everyone still running in this race? I believe, apart from Hoekstra, who we saw retiring earlier, yes. And I think the gap is coming down for second, so Holmes, I think, might be coming under attack a bit more from Van der Neert, even though they're not entirely that close on track. There's a big gap between De Vries and Williams for 5th and 6th, and then another big gap back to Ryan Nash in 7th, and Stanford is still ahead of Jacob Pegg, but only just still. Now, what's the gap like between Stanford and Nash ahead of him? It's come out, but it's still very close between him and Jacob Pegg behind. Anyone's game for 8th position here, and Stanford, well, he's coming under a real attack down the straight. Pegg's going to have the inside line, but again, he's going to have to back off. We saw this happening last lap, but the other way around. It would be utter madness to go for a move into 130R, especially in these conditions. Alonso may have pulled it off in the dry back in 2006, I believe, but there's no way he would have done that in the wet, even Fernando Alonso. Now, will Jacob Pegg go on the attack down the straight? He gets the inside line on Eric Stanford. Stanford's going off! Oh no! He's flipped it! Now, this is exactly what the drivers were talking about before the race. The way that the gravel just flips the car over if you tag it in the wrong way, if you get onto it in the wrong way, and Stanford has discovered that for himself. He's just looped the car around and over it goes onto its, well, I'd say roof, but it doesn't have one. That's our first proper flip of the day, and through goes Jarek Janik. Stanford continues, touches the wall. I don't think there's going to be much damage on that car because it was a relatively polite flip, if you have it. He's dropped to 11th place, still ahead of Fabian Rudert, but he's lost a place to Casper Onwin and Jarek Janet, and of course Jacob Pegg. But it appears he's still running fine. Let's see what his steering's like when he heads down the next straight. I believe that it'll be slightly bent, possibly. Let's see. Well, it's hard to tell from a straight that short. It seems to be fine, actually. It seems to still be a well-controlled, a well-handling car. But that he would have been left rather shaken up by that, understandably. And he's lost several positions as a result, which is a shame. And Van der Neert really is catching Jonathan Holmes now. He's pulled the gap down to less than a second, so we do have a battle on our hands for second position here between Holmes and Van der Neert. Maybe Holmes just got away at the start as Van der Neert kind of got used to the conditions, but now Van der Neert's on it and Holmes just doesn't know the track as well from his limited testing. Of course, the rain is the big equaliser for him because I don't believe it rained throughout any of the testing. So all of these drivers are effectively having to learn a new track now because of the conditions. But still, Van der Neert is catching. And yet, Wopke Hoekstra just confirms that the drivers still do need to pit and change their tyres. But they don't need to use two compounds like in the dry. And, well, that's what I was expecting. they don't need to necessarily change the tyre compound, but they do need to use 2 sets of tyres. So when will the first pit stops be made? I'm expecting them to start being made relatively soon in this race. They tend to be made from roughly the 35% through mark all the way up to the 65% through mark. Those are for the people going for a sort of longer opening stint strategy. I've seen that happening a couple of times and actually paying off, especially for the drivers starting further back in the order. The ones nearer the front will want to get their fresher tyres on as quickly as possible, really. Except maybe the leader might go for as long as they can possibly go for. So that would be Stefan Röhl, who is out of sight of these two now. Röhl really putting his foot down and getting away here. And what's the gap between Holmes and Van der Neert? It is just over a second through that sector. So it has come out slightly on that lap, but still very close. All it takes is one mistake from Holmes and Van der Neert will be right on him. Here we see Stefan Röhl really doing a stellar job now of running away from the pack. I'm wondering whether he's going to pit this time round. It's certainly nearing the pit stop stages. I reckon he'll probably try to stay out for as long as he possibly can, though, just to minimise the risk of him coming out in traffic. A tactic that a lot of leaders will do is they'll keep going and keep going until the second they see a backmarker up ahead of them in the road, and then they'll dive into the pits then to stop themselves from getting held up behind that backmarker up the road. But they'll, of course, if they feel their tyres going off, they'll still pit earlier. They're not mad enough to keep going on worn tyres. Although, so long as these tyres are still controllable and Röhl is still building up a gap, I don't see why he would pit and risk coming out in traffic, which could really delay him. We're over 40% of the race through now, and does Röhl pit this time round? He's coming around the final corner now, and he doesn't pit. Jonathan Holmes is second. I'm interested to see who's going to be the first driver to pit, actually. It's all about strategy now. And I don't know if anyone's really going to pit this earlier on in the race in these conditions, because they simply don't need to. It'll really be the alternative strategy today. But anyway, Eric de Vries through the chicane. And does he pit? No, he doesn't. Here's Jacob Pegg running in a good 6th position. So where has Matthew Williams gone? Pegg has overtaken Williams since last time I looked at this group. I'll take a look at that in the minute. Here is Matthew Williams in 7th, so Pegg has gained a lot of time on him and gone through. I reckon Williams had an off quite recently. Let's go back and see. Oh, he pitted. So there were a couple of pitters on the last lap. That explains it. It was Williams and another driver as well pitted. It was who was it? So. No, it was none of these drivers already in the pits. It was Williams and Nash. So Nash and Williams have already pitted here. And there is Nash currently running in 12th position, which explains it. So there have been a couple of pitters already early on. And that's interesting to see. The gap for second has come out again, so to 1.6. It looks as if Van der Neert had a brief attack at Holmes and is now dropping back again. Holmes possibly reacting to the pressure of Van der Neert from behind and just getting away. Anyone else in the pits this time through? No. Let's watch Ryan Nash for a bit. He's been relatively off camera for this race in his Enterprise GP car. Of course, currently running in 12th position, but is effectively running a couple of positions higher. But due to the pit stops, he of course, is right at the back. Stefan Röhl has stayed out for another lap, as have Holmes, Van der Neert, Keersmakers. Now, what about de Vries? Of course, none of these top 5 have pitted yet. These top 5 are the drivers who are really going to be having a strategy war, I'm sure. Jacob Pegg, he hasn't pitted yet. Although he is effectively, I think, in 7th rather than the 6th he is in now. Matthew Williams was the first driver to pit. And Pegg stays out. There is Williams. And now Janate and Unwin are getting rather close on track. These two closer than they were before. And if I was Casper Unwin now, I'd probably dive into the pits to get out of the spray and get the undercut on Jarek Janate ahead. But he doesn't, so both of these drivers stay out here. Eric Stanford also staying out for another lap. We are now 50% of the race through, so we are over half of the race through. And it's been a relatively quiet race so far, but with all of these pit stops, I'm sure we are about to get a real burst of energy in this WCS GP race. And race 2, of course, we have a reverse grid for, so stay around for that. That will be very, very interesting. Stefan Ruhl is almost lapping Ryan Nash here, actually, which is interesting. So if Ruhl sees Nash up the road, there's a good chance he'll want to pit as soon as he sees that. As I said, the old see the back marker and hide tactic that I was talking about just now. But again, another lap goes past without a pit stop for the leaders. But now Jonathan Holmes pits, so Holmes is in the pits now. Van der Neert and Keersmaker stay out, but Holmes is pitting. This will be for another set of wets, of course. It would be madness to venture out on anything else. And let's see where Holmes comes out in terms of traffic. Hopefully he doesn't come out in too much, although it would certainly make for an interesting race. Who's behind him? Gerrit de Vries. Does de Vries pit? It looks as if he's going to. Yeah, de Vries pits. So Jonathan Holmes exits the pits now. He's built up a considerable margin over de Vries behind. There really are 4 drivers escaping away up the road with this race. And those are the 2 RaceView GP cars, and ahead of them, Holmes and Ruhl. So de Vries is in. Jacob Pegg is in. Williams, I believe, is going to pass Pegg, but will he also jump Gerrit de Vries? No, de Vries exits the pits now ahead of Williams. Williams is going down the straight, and will he jump Pegg? Yeah, of course he will. Look at this. So Williams goes through ahead of Pegg, back into 6th position. And Janate pits. So Pegg and Janate's rivalry is continuing in the pits, although Pegg appears to have built out a considerable lead over Janate. Unwin goes through, and Unwin I don't think has pitted yet. Stanford I also don't think has pitted yet, and Ruder certainly hasn't. Will Ruder pit this time round? Looks as if he's not going to, so Ruder doesn't. He stays out for another lap. There's Ryan Nash trying to gain a few positions back. He is only just ahead of our leader, Stefan Ruhl. Now, will he pit to get out of the way of the leader? Now, it would actually be wise of him to do that. Actually, it wouldn't, because he's already pitted. What am I saying? Ruhl now pits from the lead of the race. So, Stefan Ruhl, our race leader, is in. He had about an 8-second lead before the pit stages. Let's see what it'll be like after the pit stages. He stops his car in the box now. And here comes Van der Neert. Van der Neert pits from 2nd. Oh, look at Keersmakers. Keersmakers staying out for another lap. So going for an interesting strategy. Staying out longer than any of the other leaders, as Ruhl and Van der Neert have both pitted now. And does Holmes get out ahead of Van der Neert? They were quite close. Let's watch Van der Neert. He started moving now. I think Holmes is going to get him here. Holmes gets him. In fact, Holmes has built out a bigger lead than he already had over Van der Neert. So that gap's come out. And Holmes has used the strategy well, but he's got very sideways. He's over the... Oh, no! He's spinning it! He got over the AstroTurf. Full 360. He's got it going very nicely, but he's lost 3rd position to Danny Van der Neert. Let's watch that again as Holmes does a very, very good display of acrobatics there. He just goes wide, gets it over the curb, then there's no slowing it down, gets over the AstroTurf. He would have been wise to have bailed out at that point, but spins it round full 360, gets it going again. Possibly still thought he could keep it ahead of Van der Neert, but Van der Neert just had the better momentum. Here's what Van der Neert saw of all of that. Watch Holmes up ahead. There he goes, and Van der Neert would have been thinking it was his birthday all of a sudden, gaining 3rd position, which I think will turn into 2nd position when Keersmakers pits, which I think will be this lap. Also, I think Ruder has pitted. No, he didn't pit, so Ruder's just lost that position legitimately. Did he go off? Yes, he did. So Ruder, I'm afraid, has had an off. He was actually in 10th before that, ahead of Janate. And I believe that was a position for real. gained in the pit stages, but Ruda has had a spin and has lost a place now to Ryan Nash. Now, has Keersmaker's pitted? He's coming through the final sector now. And does he pull in? Yes, he does. So our final leader to pit is in. So is Ruda. Ruda, I'm afraid, is going to be a long way behind the field after that. He was in last anyway, and now he's pitting again. But Keersmaker's already has been demoted by Ruhl, who goes through to the lead. And Ruhl's going to have a massive lead now that Holmes has made his mistake. And will Keersmaker's get out ahead of both Holmes and Van der Neert here? No, because they both go through. I was wondering whether Van der Neert really had to back out due to Holmes' spin, and whether they both lose a position to Keersmaker's, but it appears that Keersmaker's strategy of staying out longer than the others really hasn't worked. He's dropped back a long way from both Holmes and Van der Neert, and now he's got himself stuck behind Fabian Ruda as well. Ruda needs to get out of the way. He's got the blue lights flashing. And he, I expect, will be getting out of the way very shortly. Doesn't appear to be holding up Keersmaker's too much just yet. But anyway, yeah, pulls up out of the way there, and Keersmaker's goes through. Still in 4th position. Ruda runs slightly wide and over the curb. And after the pit stages, the order is Ruhl, Van der Neert, Holmes, Keersmaker's, and De Vries. Those are the top 5. And then it's Williams, Pegg, Janet, Onwin, Stanford, who goes off and over the grass, Nash, and Ruda with 1 retirement, Wopke Hoekstra. Now, what are the gaps? The gap for the lead is 12.7 seconds, so that's come out really nicely there. And Ruhl has been building out the lead that he absolutely needs. The next driver to be put a lap down is going to be Ryan Nash. You can hear Ruhl's engine in the background. There is Ruhl, and that's a fearful sight in any backmarker's mirrors. But anyway, just looking through the chat again, Wopke pointing out that the pit lane is looking a bit dangerous. A couple of people almost sliding into the wall. Luckily, we've seen the last of the scheduled pit stops, so hopefully we won't be seeing any more of that. And yeah, both Fizz and Wopke reacting to Jonathan's spin there. He got away with it rather nicely, actually, but still lost 2nd position in all of that, effectively 2nd. I predict a big mess for race 2 first turn, says Fizz. I wouldn't be surprised, but I hope we do get away with it. And still a relatively quiet race, but I'm sure that race 2 is going to be absolutely bursting with energy, especially at the start, with all of those drivers trying to make up positions. Now, as I was looking away, Ryan Nash has been lapped. He's got out of the way nicely. It's going to be Eric Stanford, the next driver, to be put a lap down by Stefan Ruhl. I can't actually hear Ruhl's car yet, so it appears that there's still going to be a little while until that changes. And Stanford is just demonstrating the very nice Suzuka circuit to us through 130R. Don't get over the exit curb, he doesn't. That's good from him not to do that, because as we've seen so far, the exit curb absolutely vicious. Are these guys still running well? Yeah, these guys still running fine at the back of the order. And there you see Jarek Janet up the road. Janet is running in 9th position. The Estonian driver. I remember at Dubai we had a lot of Estonian fans in the chat rooting for Jarek Janet. Now, did I just hear a crunch? Oh, I did! It was Casper Onwin. He was running in 8th position, and he's been into the wall. He's reversing the car back onto the road again. He's dropped to 10th position here. Gets it going, and doesn't get collected, which is good. But what has happened to Casper Onwin here? He's just got on the curb and lost control of the car into the barrier. That's a hard hit in the front. Hopefully there's no front suspension damage, but I don't think that there will be, and if there is, certainly won't be very big. You saw him bouncing slightly over the small amount of gravel there as he gets out of the way of Stefan Ruhl. The gravel has really been a talking point for this weekend, as it really has been bouncing guys around, a bit like it did to Eric Stanford earlier on, although Stanford, interestingly, is still running, so they do build these cars very, very tough, obviously. And Stanford, in fact, is still going to be the next guy to get lapped, as Onwin has been lapped now. No, Wopke says he'll race in race 2 if someone gives him a setup. So you don't need a setup if you're not going for the championship anyway, Wopke. I mean, you pulled out a few rounds ago. Then it would just be nice to see you back on the grid. Really, you can drive with any setup you like and score points in this race. Really, because of course all you need to do is take it to the finish. None of us are expecting you to win it after you've had no practice at all here, but yeah, it'd just be good to see you on the grid. You could even load up a single player session and have a practice now before the race starts. You've always got the warm up session as well, but yeah, you don't necessarily need a specialist setup for this. But anyway, I suppose in the rain, it's the big equaliser anyway. It's all down to car control. So if you can control your car properly and on track the whole time, I mean, top 10 is certainly quite achievable. I mean, Eric Stanford here has had a flip in this race, and he's still running in 9th position. So anything can happen in a race like this. Through the left-hand hairpin at, well, I can't remember what corner that is. There's Stefan Roth chasing him down. Of course, Stanford's going to have to move out of the way of Roth when Roth catches him. But he's all right for now. No blue flags being shown just yet. Roth is not quite close enough. We're on lap 16 of the race here, so we've done... I think we are going to do maybe more laps than I expected, possibly 21 or 22. However many, it's not going to be the full 23. I'm still almost certain of that. Now, Stefan Roth still chasing down Eric Stanford and gets through on the inside. So Stanford moves out of the way nicely, and Holmes has lost places. And Keersmakers is out. In fact, Holmes is missing his front wing. There has been, or nose cone rather, there's been an incident, I think, involving Holmes and Keersmakers. And how has this happened? And was it an incident between Holmes and Keersmakers? I'm going to kind of skip ahead in the footage until I find out just what happened here. But something dramatic has happened. In fact, it appears that it happened in the final sector of the last lap and Holmes just didn't pit. Well, what on earth has happened here? Oh, well, what's happened is Holmes has got... Okay, let's watch this from the TV cam. Holmes has hit a bump on the inside. He's got very, very sideways, spun the car around, and his Keersmakers collected him. Yes, he very much has. Bang! Keersmakers over and up into the air, over the barrier. No wonder he's out of the race. That is dreadful. These two were running 3rd and 4th in this race. And Holmes loses control of it. There we go. Just sideways and around he goes. And now, bang! Nothing Keersmakers could have done about that. He would have seen the yellows and he would have slowed down for that. But you can see he decreases his... Oh, doesn't decrease his speed. Well, he really should have done. I'm saying that's partially Keersmakers' fault there for not slowing down enough under yellows. Clatters into Jonathan Holmes and might well get a penalty for that, but he is out of the race, so that's enough of a penalty naturally. And what did Terry de Vries see of that when he got up into 3rd position there? He would have certainly thanked Jonathan Holmes as he went past. Well, it looks as if Holmes did. Has Holmes even... Yeah, Holmes has been into the pits, but it just looks a bit weird because as you can see, he's still missing the front portion of the car. He's actually had a go back at Matthew Williams here, but hasn't managed to get through there. And now he's under attack from Jacob Pegg, who runs wide and over the curb. But unfortunately, Holmes with a damaged car, and I don't know if that's actually affecting his downforce anymore. It's a very weird looking thing. He's actually got a floating front wing if you look carefully. But whatever the case, He's still running and will still score points in this race, but certainly significantly fewer than he would otherwise score. Might even get back at Matthew Williams here, though. He's certainly chasing. Wopke says that these cars certainly need halos now. Well, with the way that that car flipped and landed on top of the barrier, who knows what could have hit the driver's head there. Luckily, this is sim racing, of course. But anyway, it was a rather large one. But anyway, yeah, it does look like a NASCAR track, as Fizz says there. And in fact, Holmes, or NASCAR crash rather, Holmes has now got past Matthew Williams for 4th position, so that's a move that has occurred. Holmes nicely down the inside and through into 4th position. Williams back down to 5th again, and that means that the order after that big sort out is Roll, followed by Van der Neer, who gets over the curb behind Stanford there. De Vries, Holmes, Williams, Pegg, Janate, Stanford, Nash, Unwin, Ruder, and then out of the race, Keersmakers and Hoekstra. So a very, very dramatic race we have witnessed so far. And still about 10% of it remaining, followed by, of course, another race. Oh, as Williams gets onto the gravel there through the first Degner. Just misjudges the speed through the corner. And yeah, apparently you don't need the nose to be fast in one of these cars. But I think that's not actually affecting him at all. I think it's just that the mod doesn't simulate replacing the nose, only the front wing. But you only really need a front wing because that's the bit that's providing all of the downforce. Yeah, there's probably a bit of drag being created by the kind of missing front wing. But, you know, I'm not sure whether that front wing's effectively there or not. It'd be interesting to see what the game actually thinks of that. But anyway, Ruder just getting out of the way nicely for the leaders there. And Holmes is now getting away from Williams a bit there. Over a second is the gap now. And Jacob Pegg, interestingly, is going to be the next driver to be lapped by Stefan Ruhl, if Ruhl can catch him. So, really, Ruhl has been lapping a significant portion of the field here, and I'm sure that if this was a full Grand Prix length, he would probably lap the entire field. On to lap 20 we go, so we will get more than 20 laps. I was a bit pessimistic about how many laps we were actually going to get in this race. Oh, and off goes Holmes. He's run very, very wide at turn 1 there, and he's coming under attack now from Matthew Williams. Again, stays ahead of him for now, but that was a close one. Let's go back and watch what happened there to Jonathan Holmes. It looks as if he's just got over the curb again. This is what happened when he had his spin. Does bail out this time, so he's learning from his mistakes. And as a result, doesn't lose a position. So better driving than before from Jonathan Holmes to keep it in 4th position here. But still, he can't afford to make that mistake any more times because Williams is still there and ready to pounce. And I'm sure that that could still change. Here's Jacob Pegg as well, who is possibly going to attack if either of these guys make an error. I'm pretty sure it just started to rain even harder now, so it's still a very tough race in terms of the weather. I saw a front wing lying by the side of the track. Is that anyone who's on track now, or has everyone? Is it just? I think it might have actually been Jonathan Holmes' discarded front nose, his nose cone. But of course, the nose cone, not so important here. It's just the front wing, really, that's providing the downforce for Jonathan Holmes. As Pegg still chases Williams, and ahead of him, Jonathan Holmes himself. We are a long way through this race now, not long remaining. This might well be the final lap. I think we might get one more lap after this one, actually, but we're certainly near to the end of the race. Is exiting the spoon curve with a very significant lead of My goodness, almost 18 seconds. Amazing performance there, and there's been a move. Oh, Onwin's had a spin, I think. He's certainly lost a lot of momentum. Yeah, he's had a spin. He's got, so it's only a small spin. He's got on the white line on the outside of the Dunlop curve there, and spun it round. Not 100%, keeps it running, and Ryan Nash gets through. But a shame for Onwin to have lost a position so late in the race. And now Stefan Röhl goes on to the final lap of the race. And this is the final lap of the race. Really not much time left for Stefan Röhl, as De Vries is lapping Nash now. Gets through nicely. And the race is pretty much at a close. We are on the final lap of the race. It says 100% complete. That means 100% of the time is complete. And after this lap, the race would have been over. Ruda gets out of the way for Holmes. And into the second sector goes Röhl now. He's really not got much time left in this race to go. And Nash has been into the wall. So an incident for Ryan Nash. Doesn't appear to have damaged the car, but he's just got over the curb at 130R. Been into the wall quite heavily. That's going to damage his suspension, I shouldn't wonder. Let's ride on board with him and see if that's dramatic. Oh, barely any suspension damage, I'd say. If any. And Röhl is now about to enter the final sector of the course on the final lap of this first race. It's been a quiet race apart from the various incidents, but race 2, I'm sure, is going to be an interesting one. And, well, we'll see what can happen. Already some predictions coming into the YouTube chat of a win for Jonathan Holmes, says Fizz. But through the final sector now, no one could bet against Stefan Röhl dominating this victory. Final corner, Stefan Röhl absolutely dominant. Look at that, wins the race. Amazing performance from Röhl. And Van der Neert is still at 130R. Van der Neert is going to be about 20 seconds behind Stefan Röhl in a race that only took 40 minutes. 41 minutes. Let's see what the official gap is as they cross the line. Van der Neert crosses the line now. It is 20.2 seconds. That's incredible. A brilliant victory from Stefan Röhl to absolutely dominate the race. There's only going to be 6 drivers who finish on the lead lap here out of 13 starters. Gerrit de Vries is going to inherit a very unexpected third place after Holmes and Keersmakers came together. Well done to Stefan Röhl. He was untouchable, as Fizz says in the YouTube chat. He was indeed untouchable, 20.2 seconds ahead of anyone else. He's really got this car mastered in these conditions. Through the final corner comes Gerrit de Vries, and Gerrit is going to get third place. There he goes. I believe that's his first podium of the season. Jonathan Holmes would have finished third, but comes fourth instead. Fifth is going to be... Oh, it's a close competition between Williams and Pegg. But I think Williams is just going to hold on to this. 2 identically liveried cars, I believe, are from different teams here. And Williams crosses the line fifth, just ahead of Jacob Pegg. Did well to hold him off on that final lap there. And then a lap down, we had Jarek Janet, Eric Stanford, Casper Oinwin, Ryan Nash and Fabian Ruda to round out the points. And then out of the race, after that huge flip, Laurent Keersmakers, I think he only really has himself to blame after not slowing for the yellows. And Rian Hoekstra, who seemed to just give up after a couple of big spins. So, on to race 2 now, and we will see who will come out on top after that race. I'm going to take a brief break and be straight back for race 2. Okay, so I'm back, and we are just preparing for race 2. About 3 minutes to go, and we are, of course, still with the WCS GP series from Suzuka. Ignore the title of this YouTube stream if you're watching it live. This is not the Megan round from Guangdong. This is the GP round from Suzuka. And if there's one driver that I feel slightly sorry for here, it is Fabian Ruder, because he, of course, is the only driver who finished the last race who will not take advantage of the reverse grid. So he will have to start from 11th place, while the driver who finished ahead of him is starting from pole. And that, I believe, will be Ryan Nash, followed by Eric Stanford, I think. So Nash and Stanford will make up the front row. One driver who might well be one to look out for, of course, is Jonathan Holmes, because he's going to be the leading championship contender, and as a result, he will certainly be one to look out for coming through the order. So yeah, look out for Jonathan Holmes. Also possibly the other guys as well, like Stefan Rowe, for example. Rowe, brilliant performance in race 1, certainly has this car sorted, and if he can get into the lead at any point, I'm sure that he will have it absolutely sorted and just get away from the rest of the pack. As we just saw Jacob Pegg going for a spin. I was kind of watching that on the delay on the stream there, as Holmes goes out for a quick practice run now. Of course, this is all just practice. The second race has not started yet. We're still waiting for the time to tick to 0 so we can pull the cars onto the start grid and then start preparing for race 2. And hopefully everyone makes it out onto the track at this time. How many drivers have we got? We've got 14, because Wopke Hoekstra and Antonio Krjalinovic has joined, and we've lost one driver. Now, who's that? I'm not sure who that is, but someone's left. I'm going to have a look through this to see who actually left here, but whoever's done it. Obviously, we're a driver down. Is it Casper Onwin? No, he's in this. Is it Jarek Janet? No, he's here too. Jonathan Holmes goes for a big spin and a huge crash. In fact, was that deliberate, or did he literally just crash? Yeah, he just got onto the. I think he just got onto the grass as he braked, spun the car around, bang! That's a big one. But good to see that Wopke Hoekstra is in this race. I wasn't expecting to see him for the remainder of the series. He is back for this round. Of course, he was a real title contender earlier this series before he missed the last round. Of course, he missed the round in Bahrain. And technically, he's still in contention for good points because of the drop scores. He's effectively not missed a round yet. He was going to miss Laguna Seca, but that didn't take place. So his results so far in this championship: a 5th, a 3rd, a 6th, and a 12th. Although he did, of course, miss the opening round at the opening race at Suzuka as well. So, of course, he will have lost points from this round. And I don't believe that the CM Tech... Well, I believe that the CM Tech team is still looking for a second driver. So if they do find one, I don't think he will be doing any of the races for the remainder of the season. But still, good to see him on the grid for today. Currently 7th in the championship, ahead of Antonio Krjalinovic, in fact, who is also in this round, I believe. Stepping in for race 2, wasn't here for race 1, and the time has now ticked to 0, so we're just waiting for Hoekstra and Keersmakers to get off the track, and then we can get the cars back to the grid boxes before we switch to the race session. So, what can Stefan Rowe do for from 10th on the grid, or 9th on the grid, because one driver's left, I think. Actually, was it Rian Hoekstra? Yeah, I believe it's Rian Hoekstra we've lost. Oh no, we've lost another driver. Now, who have we lost now? Krjalinovic. Okay, so Krjalinovic we've lost again. And I don't think that he's going to be making it in for this race. So Krelinovic obviously not making either race. We've also lost Wopke Hoekstra and gained Wopke Hoekstra. So we've lost one CM Tech car, gained another. And, well, Wopke about 2.9 seconds off the pace for now. But again, it's all about what he can do in the race. And we're just going for the race session very shortly. So again, the drivers will have 1 minute to get their car to the grid. And after that minute, the formation lap will begin. They'll go around the track once to assess the conditions. And then they will wait on the grid for the lights to come on and then off. And then they will be racing for race 2 here at Suzuka. So we're just waiting for the session to take over. And I can't read out the order that they will be starting in until that happens. I believe that it will be Ryan Nash on pole. Krelinovic is back. That's good to see. So we do have another driver here. Another one for the Enterprise Racing team. And now the session is switching over. So it's going to be Nash on pole, followed by Onwin, Stanford. I'll just look back at the cars so you can have a good look of what that would look like. So Nash is on pole, followed by Onwin, Stanford, Janate, Pegg, Williams, Holmes, De Vries, Van den Eert, our race 1 winner Rule, and then it's Rude, Keersmakers, Krelinovic, and Hoekstra. So those are our drivers for race 2 here at Suzuka in the order that they will start. Hopefully everyone makes it out onto the grid. Of course, race 1 had to be restarted after Stefan Rule very nearly had to start from the pit lane. Now, wouldn't that have changed the race up a bit? Ryan Nash now makes it onto the grid. And I believe that we're all here, are we? No, Holmes still in the pits, and he has 5 seconds left. Come on, Jonathan. Make it out onto the grid. Yes, he's made it out. Did everyone? Yes, we've got all 14 drivers on the grid, just about. And now our formation lap can begin. So Ryan Nash leading the field around ahead of Casper Onwin and Eric Stanford. I forgot that Stanford got Onwin at the end with Onwin's spin, but that does put Onwin on the front row of the grid. Nash, Onwin, Stanford, Janate, Pegg, Williams, Holmes, De Vries, Van den Eert, Rult, Rude, Keersmakers, Krelinovic, Hoekstra. That is how they're going to round up here. After he's done one long formation lap here at the very, very wet still Suzuka circuit. Look at that chat. Oh dear. Okay, anyway. Here is the second Degner. That's where a lot of the mistakes occur in the dry. One of the most difficult corners in the dry. And then up towards a tight left-hand hairpin. Difficult to get the power down out of here without spinning it round. And if we look at the back of the order, that is the amount of visibility that we'll get, that the drivers at the back will get with all of the spray. In fact, that will be increased. The spray will be increased when the cars are moving faster. I mean, you can see it there as we're heading out of the final corner, or out of that last corner there. He's actually dropped back a bit so that he doesn't get a face full of water, has Wopke Hoekstra. So, yeah, it's going to be difficult for the guys at the back. And that's why pole position is a very good position to have. Because Ryan Nash is going to have a clear view down to turn 1 this time. And if Casper Onwin can pip him into turn 1, then Onwin will be in the driving seat. Physically and metaphorically for this upcoming race. 11 laps of this circuit are going to be taking place. I reckon that, well, I was a bit pessimistic with the laps last time. I'm going to say we are going to get all 11 here. So let's see. Round the final corner comes Nash, and he's going to line up. He's going to be the first driver to line up in his grid slot. You hear a few people honking their horns there, possibly being a bit angry at how slow the pace is going, but it's a formation lap. You need to keep it slow and not dash away from the pack behind you. And Nash now lines up on the grid in grid box number 1. There he goes. And now let's watch it from the back of the order to see when the last few guys have lined up. Here's Wopke Hoekstra, who positions his car to the inside. Here come the lights. 4, 5, go! We're underway. It was a quick start. And I believe that Onwin has got a better start than Nash here. Does he get alongside him down into turn 1? No, actually, Nash has got the best start here. He defends down into turn 1. Nash gets the lead. Then it's Onwin and Stanford as we head through the first couple of corners. Is everyone through cleanly? That looks like a clean start to me. Ruder's dropped back a bit, possibly spun the rears up of the line and got a bad start. Someone's off in the gravel. Is that Ruhl? Oh, it's De Vries. Okay, so De Vries, who was third after last race. Whoa! Keysmakers gets very sideways and loses a bit of bodywork on the car of Gerrit De Vries, who drops to the back of the order. I believe Keysmakers did lose a little bit of bodywork there. Yeah, you can see it's missing on the rear right, I think. And Janet's slowing. So Janet slows. He's had some sort of incident or spin or something like that. De Vries almost pulled out of the spray of Ruder, and Janet obviously struggling. He's gone off again, spins it round, keeps it going though, and it's Nash leading from Onwin and Stanford, but Williams is all over the back of Stanford already, and Stanford already going for Onwin as Onwin takes a very differing line, and now Stanford is dropping back towards Williams as they head up through the turn before Spoon. Spoon, of course, being the double left-hander you're about to see here. Can't get too much over the curb or you'll go off there. Now, out of Spoon we go, and Nash is building up quite a nice lead here. That's a good gap that Nash has built over Onwin. And now watch Holmes in the chasing pack. Took a look at Matthew Williams there, but didn't bother going for the move just yet. Williams takes a look at Stanford. That would be a difficult one to pull off. There's Ruhl, currently running in 7th. He's made up 3 positions at the start here. And Jarrett Janet, who's dropped right to the back. After the first lap, it's Nash from Onwin, Stanford, Williams and Holmes that make up the top 5. And now watch Matthew Williams pulling out to defend from Holmes, who goes through around the outside, but can't keep it. And now Holmes has to back off as Stanford backs up Williams, who backs up Holmes. Holmes already under attack from Ruhl. So a chaotic first lap, but I believe that everyone's through cleanly, with a couple of guys dropping behind the field a bit, but no major incidents, still everyone running in this race. What was the gap for the lead? Nash has already built up a 2.2 second lead. That's a brilliant gap from Ryan Nash at the start of the race here. And he needs to keep extending that gap for when the quicker guys get through the field, if they do. Onwin gets over the gravel. That's a bad mistake from Onwin. Gets off the track and loses places now to many people. Holmes is off. Oh no, big crash. Who's involved there? Is that Keysmakers? Someone in the middle of the road has been collected. There's a huge pile-up. Many cars involved. There's a wheel off. It's Wopke Hoekstra, who is out of his returning race and is unfortunately our first retirement. It looks as if he's going to try to limp it back to the pits here, which is interesting. But someone spun. 2 people went off, and then they just got collected by the remaining pack. So let's watch how that all unfolded here. Here's Casper Onwin, who goes off first, gets over the gravel, and goes off again. And I wonder whether the guys behind just kind of linked wheels with him or trying to pass him. Well, these guys, oh my word, when he got collected again, that was Jonathan Holmes. It was Holmes and Stanford. It looks as if, okay, so Stanford and Williams got locked together there. Holmes went for a look at Stanford, tagged him. I'm afraid that's Holmes' fault. They both went off there, bang! And then Holmes and Stanford are parked in the middle of the road. And Stanford is going to get a right old whack here. There you see it from Hoekstra. And another guy is well involved. And it'll be interesting to see who gets the most damage here. Oh, good avoidance from Antonio Frelinovic. Here's Hoekstra. Bang. Absolutely bang. There's Ruder. Did Ruder get involved? I'm not sure. Oh my word, that's why the halo's needed. That was Lauren Keersmakers going right underneath the car of Eric Stanford. What about, is this De Vries? Oh, De Vries was lucky, got over the grass. Lost a lot of time in that. And I think Ruder and Janet got through it nicely. Did they? Yeah. No, Ruda, that's far too fast. Just about avoided them, but certainly that was close. But anyway, that's the order, or that's how the order was shaken up. And now the order is Nash, Ruel, Williams. So Ruel already made it all the way up the field. Van der Neert, Onwin, Krelinovic, Pegg, Holmes, De Vries, Stanford, who spins again. What's happened here? Has he gone off as a result of the damage? I'm not sure, but he's just kind of kicked the rear out going through Dunlop, and he's hit the wall on the inside and then spun it across the track. And then it's Ruda, who's already up to 10th, followed by Janet, Keersmakers, and Hoekstra, who has actually put a new wheel on the car. So that's brilliant. A lot of guys at that point would have given up. But 3 wheels on my wagon, says Hoekstra, keeps the car going and actually pits it for a new wheel. And that's one of the first times I've seen that happening in sim racing. But good to see that he's still in the race. But anyway, and it's Nash leading from Ruel still. Ruel, of course, will be going on the attack now. He's really been helped by the carnage in the opening 2 laps because he was able to avoid it and get through into 2nd position. And that means that he has now got a clear road ahead of him to chase down Ryan Nash. What's the gap? 1.9 seconds. So still a significant gap, but I'm sure that's going to be coming down pretty sharpish. Ruda has just got past Pegg because Pegg has been off. Now, what's happened here to Jacob Pegg? A lot more incident than we saw in race 1. Well, what happened first was Onwin went for Krelinovic up the inside, outbraked himself, went off the road, and then Ruda, I think, is going, or Pegg, I think, is just going to, yeah, he's just going to loop the car around. There he goes, takes a spin, and drops behind Ruda ahead of him. Couple of guys in the pits now with damage. Janet is in. And also in is Eric Stanford. These guys we saw getting damaged early on. Hoekstra is already pitted, of course. Oh! Well, what's happened to Nash? We've had a new leader. Ruel is back in the lead of the race. Or is in the lead of the race. Nash has spun it from the lead. So what's happened? This is in the Dunlop curve. Nash gets over the curb and loses the lead of the race. Into the wall he goes. Bounces off it. And through goes Ruel. And then through goes Williams as well. That's a bad mistake from Ryan Nash. Here it is from on board him. And at that point, that's the point when your heart sinks, when you're leading the race and you feel the car going. And that's the point when it sinks even more, when you know you've lost the lead. And then you lose second too. That's just to add insult to injury, of course. And here is what Matthew Williams, or Stefan Ruel rather, saw. And that's the lead for him. And he's now on target to win 2 out of 2 races here. And that would be really quite something. Of course, the last wet race we saw was at Interlagos. That was won, or both races there were won by Niels Brugman, who I should remind you did barely any practice for that. And the amazing Niels Brugman, of course, just stepped in and won both races. It's a shame that he's not here today, but after dropping from the lead of the championship to 4th last time out, he's obviously not turned up today. And the championship battle is between Van der Neert, Ruel and Holmes today. What's the gap for the lead last time round? 1.2 seconds. That I expect will come out, but we'll see. It'll really take a mistake now from Ruel for him to lose this race. Holmes and Krelinovic slightly closer on track, but oh, and Holmes made a mistake there. Actually, Holmes made a mistake, and will Krelinovic be able to get through here? Down into the Degners. Holmes is going defensive after that mistake. He might outbrake himself here. No, he didn't. It looks as if he might. It looked as if he might have done, but he didn't. It was certainly close. And now, as we head through the left. Oh my word! That's from far too far back. Surely touches Jonathan Holmes. Does Krelinovic. That was never a move that was on. He's still alongside him. Hopefully Holmes gets this back again, because that wasn't a fair move. They touch wheels. They bang wheels as they go through the right hand of before Spoon there. That was very close. And Holmes still keeps ahead of Antonio Krelinovic after Krelinovic tried to push Holmes off the line. But still, Holmes keeps ahead. And Krelinovic will have to try something else. Of course, the slipstream comes with its obvious disadvantages in a race like this, with the spray really being kicked up from the car ahead. Basically, a lot of water gets flicked at your car from the rear wheels of the car ahead. And that can not only slow you down because of the extra resistance, but it can also make it very difficult to see and pick out your braking points. So a lot of disadvantages to following a car in the wet. But he's still doing it, and rather closely as well. You see the gap still under a second apart. Was there a move there? I don't think there was, actually. I think I was just seeing things. Half of the race done now, and still we have 13 drivers remaining from 14. Jarek Janet is out. Now, was that a separate incident from Jarek? Yeah, he's had another off. I don't think this is what caused the retirement. He's been over the curb and into the gravel. And then he's probably had another incident after that too, has he? Yeah, he's had another one. And this is at Dunlop. He's just going to get it crossed up, I imagine. There he goes, and into the barrier. Bang. Something flew off the car, certainly. What was that? It was a piece of rear aerodynamics, but did that cut out the engine too? Bang! Is the engine gone? That seems like a pretty dead engine to me, so I'm afraid. Oh no, he did still have. Or was that gravity propelling him there? I'm not sure, but anyway, he is our first retirement. Is Jarek Janet, I'm afraid. And it's still quite close for second between Williams, Nash and Van der Neert. Holmes and Shrelinovic also close on track, as they have been for pretty much the entire race so far. And now we are just coming to the end of lap 6. I'm interested to see what the gaps are going to be like after this lap, because it looks as if there's a couple of battles closing up. Yeah, battle for third here definitely closing up, with Van der Neert really chasing Nash, and Stanford's now dropped behind Hoekstra. So what's happened there? Because he was about 10 seconds ahead last time I looked, so Stanford has obviously had an issue. There's his issue. He's got over the curb and got sideways out of turn 1, and has been passed now by Wopke Hoekstra. There he goes up the inside. Stanford down into 13th position, and Nash still being chased by Van der Neert. We are 61% of the race through now. Through race 2, and Ruhl still leading this race. He is going to be in a brilliant position to take the lead of the championship after this round. He hadn't actually won yet in the championship. He'd had 4 podiums, 2 of them second places, but that was his first win of the series, and I believe that put him up to the lead of the championship. And that a good result for Stefan Ruhl. Of course, he was only 1 point behind the championship leader, Danny Van der Neert, going into this round. He's going to be ahead of that if he wins these 2 races. Ruhl definitely in a great position here. Of course, effectively, in terms of overall points, Van der Neert is third in the championship, or was coming into this round. And the 2 drivers behind him, Ruhl and Holmes, should have actually been the other way round and ahead of him in the championship. But anyway, drop scores did come into play, so Van der Neert was leading this championship going into this round. Nash, I think, did run over the inside curb of the chicane there, so he would have lost a bit of momentum here. And does Van der Neert go for it now, down into turn 1? This is for 3rd position. Too far back. Too far back indeed there. Nash running slightly wide on the exit though. Van der Neert taking a more attacking line there. Tighter exit. Looking like a real predator through the S's here, as he hunts his prey up ahead, the prey being Ryan Nash. Is everyone still running in this race? Nope, we've lost Eric Stanford, I'm afraid. So Eric Stanford, who we saw having a spin just now, is out of the race now. Has there been a further incident? Well, he's... Oh, and what's happened here? This has been an interesting one. He's run over the curb and then just seemed to keep going. It looked as if he wasn't really doing much to do with braking there, and now spins the car around, and it looks as if he's just given up there. Yeah, he just has. Now that damage caused by that wouldn't have been significant enough to retire him from the race or anything of the sort, but it looks as if he's just had enough of these conditions and has retired from this race. Nash has now lost his place to Van der Neert, so the move for third has occurred. And has it occurred down into the hairpin? No, it happened earlier. It actually happened out of the second Degner hit, so Van der Neert got up the inside as Nash went over the curb and couldn't really put the power down, and Van der Neert got through into third position. Let's see that from on board both drivers. Van der Neert just saw it as, there's the gap. Nash is slow on the exit. I'm going for it, and through he went. Nash saw it as, oh dear. There you see him going, oh, he just didn't get the turn in for the corner. Gets on the curb, can't get the power down, and loses his place to Van der Neert. And is now down into fourth position. And is under real attack from Jonathan Holmes now for fourth. Holmes up the inside as we head down into turn one. And he gets it. Does he get it slowed in time? Yes, he does. So Holmes now up into fourth position. So good move from Jonathan Holmes to put himself ahead of Ryan Nash. And still about 20% of the race remaining. We're on lap 9. So the order still very much as it was a couple of minutes ago, except for Van der Neert Van der Neert and Holmes getting Nash. The order is now Rowe, Williams, Van der Neert, Holmes, Nash, Shelanovic, De Vries, Pegg, Onwin, Keersmakers having a terrible time today, Ruder, Hoekstra, and then out of the race Stanford and Janet. And now Holmes and Van der Neert extending their gap over Ryan Nash, who is now dropping back towards Matthew Williams behind him. Earlier on, it was Nash and Williams for the lead of the race until the accident happened. Oh, it's actually Shelanovic, rather. So Shelanovic approaching Nash for his fifth position. He was right with Jonathan Holmes just a few minutes ago, but has obviously dropped back. But he sees Ryan Nash up the grid now, up the track, and is going for him. But he's gone off, so he runs wide at 130 out, gets it back on. Now, I think I just heard some sort of crunch, so something's gone wrong. Who's been involved there? It seems like everyone's fine, actually, so maybe I was just hearing things. But anyway, on to another lap. That's lap 10. And now, Shelanovic right in the slipstream of Ryan Nash. Two identically liveried cars, but Shelanovic goes off. I don't believe these two are from the same team. They are Enterprise GP teammates. I thought that Matthew Williams was another of the Enterprise GP cars. No, it appears he's in the generic WCS GP car for this weekend. He was in a different car last time out, I think. But anyway, Shelanovic was really chasing down Ryan Nash up ahead of him, but he's had enough and has dropped back a bit. Now it's all about chasing him down again. Still 12 drivers running in this race, and Van der Neert has got past Matthew Williams, has he? Have they switched? Yeah, I think that has changed. So yeah, Van der Neert up into second. And how and when has that occurred? Has Williams made a mistake actually? Because he's quite a long way ahead at this point. And now he's behind. So what's happened to Matthew Williams? I'm going to see if I can find that on the footage. Yeah, he's made a mistake. So Williams has run wide in the middle of turn one over the curb. He's gone off the road and through goes Van der Neert up the inside. And then Van der Neert's just held it. Let's see that from these two drivers' perspectives. Here's Williams running wide mid-corner and going over the escape road to lose second position. And there, now is the sight that he didn't want to see, Van der Neert getting through. But that is entirely what did happen. And Van der Neert was a long way behind Williams, but was just gifted that, really. That's why making a mistake is really quite costly in a race like this. And Van der Neert gets up into second ahead of Matthew Williams. Jonathan Holmes is chasing. And Shelanovic has lost even more time to Ryan Nash now. I'm sure that gap wasn't quite that large last time I checked. We're on the final lap of the race now, and let's watch this Williams versus Van der Neert battle on the final lap of the race. Holmes is chasing as well. It's still Stefan Ruhl leading this race. And now through the second sector of the course, we are very nearly at a close. We've only got one sector left in the race. 100% complete, says the timer. So, really, not much time left. This is the final lap of the race. One sector to go after this one for Stefan Ruhl to hold on to this win. But who is going to be second? These guys all close. And someone might be able to go for a move down the next straight if there's a bad runner to spoon from any of these guys. And it appears that Ruhl is going to win the race by about 20 seconds in this race as well, despite it being a much shorter race. So Ruhl has been utterly dominant this race weekend. He's coming out of the final corner now. And an amazing double victory from Stefan Ruhl, drive of the season, to put himself well and truly in the lead of the championship. Ruhl wins it. And it's going to be Danny Van der Neert who does hold on to second position here. Who gets second position on the penultimate lap after Williams makes a mistake. Through the final corner he goes. Van der Neert second. Williams is going to be third. There he goes. Fourth is Jonathan Holmes. His second fourth. No! Did he just lose it to Ryan Nash on the final corner? He did. Now what's happened there? Did Holmes have a spin? Or has he run out of fuel? What's happened to Jonathan Holmes? Well, he's driving very, very slowly in the final corner there. That looks very much like he ran out of fuel. And, oh no, he kicked it back. Was he giving the place back to Ryan Nash? It looked to me as if he was giving the place back to Ryan Nash. I wonder whether those two made contact earlier on. And Holmes feels the need to give Nash the place back to compensate for that. But whatever the case, they've changed positions. Krelinovic was 6th. De Vries was 7th. And 8th was Peg. 9th was Keersmakers. 10th was Onwin. 11th is going to be Fabian Ruder. And 12th, and definitely one of the best drives I've seen in a long time from Wopke Hoekstra to finish the race despite losing a wheel at one point. And I've seen that in endurance racing on simulators before. But, as he gets very sideways over the curb at 130R. Amazing to see Wopke Hoekstra didn't give up there. I've seen drivers in this race giving up after spins. But Wopke loses a wheel and doesn't see it as a problem. He's just here for the fun of it. And he crosses the line in 12th position. Brilliant to see. And then, of course, we had 2 retirements in Eric Stanford and Jarek Janet. So that was the second race of the weekend. And that makes up the 2 races. I'm going to get up TeamSpeak now so we can possibly have some interviews. And then that will be the end of the broadcast. I'll be right back.
Connected. Channel switched. Channel switched.
Well, you were just hearing the voice of TeamSpeak there as I was just getting it all sorted out. We're just waiting for a couple of drivers to come in. I'm wondering whether anyone will. Hopefully we do get a few. It would be great to hear from Wopke Hoekstra after that. That would be brilliant to hear about. After such an amazing performance from Wopke there to cross the line despite losing a wheel. It would also be really good to hear from Stefan Ruhl after those 2 amazing victories. And I don't know why I just exited the server because now you've got nothing to look at. So I'm going to get up the server again, although it would have changed over. So I think I'll just put the camera on a car in the tuning menu or something like that. But anyway, I don't know if we are going to get any interviews today because it was a very small grid, and I'm not sure if anyone really took that one very seriously. But hopefully we do get a couple of people in. maybe just one. If anyone in the chat is watching this and had something to do with the race, so maybe you were a team boss or a driver, even for just one of the races, and you want to hop in, just sort of nicely round out the broadcast, that would be very, very nice of you. And I'll be right back when we have a couple of people in.
User was moved to your
Wopke
channel.
Hoekstra, can you hear me? Wopke, you've got your mic on mute. Well, we do have a Wopke Hoekstra, but he appears to be on mute here, so obviously we can't hear him just yet. Hopefully he's hopping in.
Okay,
Hello, Wopke.
Yeah, hello.
Right, so of course you missed race 1. I thought you were actually completely out of this series. You said you thought the car felt a bit weird and you weren't really having much fun driving it. Was race 2 just for fun, or were you properly hoping to get some points for your team?
Yeah, kind of both. I was watching the race and I was actually getting the racing itches, so I decided to have a go in race 2. I didn't have a setup, so well, some people sent me a setup, but I couldn't really drive them, unfortunately. I guess it's just my driving style. So I took one of the old setups that I still had from the start of the season, and yeah, I was that slow, but at least I enjoyed it.
Well, great to hear you enjoyed it. One thing I was very, very glad to see was that when you lost your wheel at the start in the big accident, you still kept going and actually pitted for a new wheel, and you very rarely see that in a sprint race, and you finished in the points. So brilliant to see. Talk us through that.
Yeah, at the points, someone spun in front of me, and well, in front of everyone actually, and I don't know what happened, but I couldn't see it. I just saw a lot of spray, and suddenly there was a car appearing right in front of me, so I pushed on the brake, but it was way too late, and I lost one of my wheels. So yeah, at that point I was thinking, like, should I escape or should I try to continue? And I thought, like, there's only 14 drivers in the race, and who knows who's gonna quit, and yeah, I'll just try to complete the race at least and see how much points I can get. I wasn't even sure if I could repair my wheel, but it only took 10 seconds.
Amazing.
So, that's quite a good job by the crew. So I have to thank them for that. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I guess that was the most funny part of the race for me. After that, I just tried to see how fast I could go. But I was 3.5 seconds off the pace from Stefan, so amazing job to him. The others were at least a little bit closer, but still, I don't think a lot of would have been possible. Maybe a few more positions, but not that much.
So will we be seeing you back for any of the remaining rounds in this series?
It depends. If I have the time, then possibly, yeah. It's kind of busy.
Good,
so,
good.
Who knows?
I must say, I want your pit crew. Repairing a tyre actually putting a whole new wheel on the car in just 10 seconds, when my Megané team takes a whole minute to change a tyre. Yeah, okay. Anyway, we do have another driver to bring
User was
into
moved
the
to your
broadcast
channel.
chat now, and that is our dominant victor of both races, Stefan Ruhl.
Hey guys.
User
So,
disconnected from your
Stefan,
channel.
all I saw today was the back end of your car disappearing up the road. You must really, really like the car in these conditions.
Yeah, this is one of those times where the setup and the conditions and my I guess my driving style just aligned perfectly, and car felt great. It was an amazing feeling to be that quick and have it. It felt so. The car felt so easy to drive that quickly. It was a great feeling.
Fantastic. And race one, of course, you started on pole. You got the lead straight away. Did the car just feel perfect throughout the whole thing? Were you ever worried about the tyres or the strategy?
No, so at the first stint, I just tried to push as little as possible because the tires in these conditions, if you you can really slide around in the wet, and the tires still wear a lot, even though the cooling should be there. I don't think it's really applied that much, so the wear just gets heavier and heavier if you slide too much around. So I just really tried to control the tires and see what happened behind me, and I saw there was a great fight going on for P2, and I guess that helped me a lot because when you're fighting, you're losing time. So then after the pit stop, I saw that I still had the lead, and I decided, okay, I have to make sure that I get the fastest lap because that's an extra point. So I tried to do that, and then tried to bring it home.
Well, it was rather amazing. Race 2 as well. You had to get your way through the field. I can imagine your heart rate raised quite dramatically when you saw everyone going off behind you at the second degner of the second lap there.
Yeah, the spray really limits your visibility. Your visibility is very poor if you're driving behind a lot of cars. So I saw these sprays, and the spray was going left and right, and then off track, and I saw some cars going left and right, and I didn't know actually what to do. But yeah, finally I had some luck this second race, and could drive around all the chaos, and then did some overtakes. I had some good top speed there. I guess everyone tried to put more downforce on the car to get better grip in the wet conditions, but I felt that didn't help me that much, so I put less downforce, and the top speed really helped me to overtake some guys.
And also, it was quite amazing to see that you won race 2 by pretty much the same gap as race 1, despite it being half the length. It almost looked like everyone was diving out of your way in race 2. I mean, of course, there was that crash at the start. Ryan Nash had a spin in front of you. Your start was pretty good, though. You made up a couple of positions at the start, though.
Yeah, I was really happy I could jump Danny at the start because Danny is the leader in the championship from after previous round. So I jumped him at the. I immediately got in front of him at the start, and then I saw some guys. Yeah, I don't know actually who it was, but if you say it was Ryan, I saw some guys fighting and hitting each other. But like I said, I could just drive around it, and I was quite lucky sometimes. But there you go. You need some luck sometimes.
Absolutely, it's all part of it. And as a result, you're now leading the championship. So very good performance. And I'll see you next time. So anyway, that was the end of this broadcast today. Our next round is in 2 weeks' time, and that's going to be at Istanbul. So that's an interesting one. A very well-liked track in Turkey, of course. Now defunct in reality, but it's good that we can always revive it on the simulator, and that's what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks' time. So join us then. We have a new championship leader today in Stefan Ruhl, and we will see you next time to see if that stands.